I want to introduce myself. My name's Renee Brandon. As was said, I'm with Field Agent. My role at Field Agent, I'm Vice President of Research and Data. And let me just tell you a little bit about Field Agent. Field Agent is a mobile app that is free to download on the smartphone platform, whether it's Android phone or iPhone. And via that mobile app, we can collect information from shoppers, either in specific locations or wherever they happen to be or in their homes. Now, that kind of information we can collect can be visibility inside of stores, and we use the platform for a lot of clients who want to understand, what does my product look like on the shelf? Or I have paid for displays up in the stores. I want to make sure that they are there, that they are fully stocked, and that they look neat and tidy, and that they're in the locations that they're supposed to be in. And that is something that our clients use Field Agent for all the time. And we have a crowdsourced platform, so we have people all over the country who can go and gather that information, visibility in stores. We also use the same mobile app to collect shopper insights from average shoppers who are either shopping in stores or who are at home, maybe using products. And so we use the platform for both research and for what we call audits, which is objective information in the stores. And we also use it for mystery shopping as well, simple mystery shops. We've used it for things like, go in and purchase something and make sure that it was delivered, to the right specifications. So that's what we do. Me personally, I've been with Field Agent for about 3.5 years. Field Agent is local here to Fayetteville, but I have 20+ years in the market research industry and in consumer insights and shopper insights. So I'm going to be talking about shopper insights, and just want to talk more generally about how you would think about shopper insights, how you might put together an approach to go out and find information that you need about your shoppers or about consumers. And it all starts at the very beginning with a business question. This seems very straightforward, but it's very easy when you think about shopper insights to kind of jump to, I need to go and ask shoppers this. I need to know if shoppers like blue or green better. That's what I need to know. And we always encourage clients to take a step back and think about, what is the decision or the business issue that you are trying to address. Generally, you need to make some kind of business decision like, hey, sales are down in Walmart stores for my product, and I need to know what to do about it. That would be the business decision. Or my competitor has gone big in stores with lots of displays, launched a new product, making lots of noise in the marketplace. I need to know, how do I counter that? So those would be the business decisions. From there, we would be better able to figure out how to go about getting the insights you need to make those business decisions. So some types of data that you might get back that would help you make those decisions would be something like, hey, we found out that 50% of purchases are made on deal or coupon or special or something like that. If we knew that, that might tell us this is a very deal-driven category. Maybe we should go out with a coupon, something of that nature to address the business problems. Maybe we learned that most shoppers think your product isn't worth your price. And that might mean you've got some messaging issues. You need to go out with some revised messaging claims, or a new package design, or maybe some more displays in store to communicate what the true benefits are. If you found out that 30% of shoppers didn't notice your product or your display, maybe you'd need to figure out, well, why? Is it because the display wasn't up and we paid for it? We need to go in there and verify that it's up. Or maybe it's not being effective, and why not? Maybe it's not visually compelling. Maybe the offer is not compelling. So we need to find those things out. Or we need to know if people are excited about your product or a new package or any of those things. So these would be the types of information you'd get that would feed directly those business decisions. So there's different ways to gather this type of information. There's lots of different resources for shopper insights. On the first one, when it came to purchasing, Sales data would be the best resource for that. You'd understand I need to dig into my sales data. I need to look at either syndicated sales data, or I need to look into the Walmart link system or wherever I can get that data and find out what's going on with sales of my products. If you think that maybe the problem is a perception issue, you're going to have to talk to consumers and shoppers and find out what their perceptions are. A survey would be a way to do that. Maybe your company already has some surveys. You could dig into that data, or maybe you need to conduct your own survey to find that out. If the issue is what's going on in the store, what's going on with display, how does my product look at the shelf, then you're going to have to do something in store to find out the answer to that. What's noticeable in the store area? So do some in-store research. And then, there's other ways. Social media listening is another resource, or custom surveys. So looking around for different resources that you have. But if you find that you need to go out and get the information that you're looking for to make your business decisions, you can design studies to go out and get that information for you. So if you're designing a study, you have to think, well, what kind of study would I want to do? What kind of shopper insight study? And the first thing you have to decide is, do I want to do a quantitative study or a qualitative study? And the quantitative study gives you how many? It's any kind of quantifiable information. So if I need to know how many shoppers think this or that, or do more shoppers like this versus that, or do more shoppers notice this versus that, those are all quantitative objectives. For that, you'd need to do some quantitative research. However, if you say, I really don't understand the shopper mindset, I don't understand how they think about my product or my category, I don't understand what motivates them, I don't understand their emotional connections. I know what they do because I see their sales data and I know what happens, but I just don't understand it. I can't explain it, and if I can't explain it, I can't influence it. That would all be qualitative, and you would design a qualitative study to go out and find out what's going on in the mind of the shopper, what are some of those motivations and emotional connections they have. And anytime you want to know quantities of people, either absolute quantities, like I've got to know 30% of people do this versus 40% of people, or I've got to know more people do this than that, that's quantitative. And it's really important to design your study around whether you need those numbers or whether that's not your ultimate goal. So if you're thinking about a qualitative study, this is all about going deep with shoppers and understanding how they think and what's going on in their head. So if you're going to do a study like that, you're going to want to design the study so you can get people talking and thinking about things that maybe they don't give that much thought to normally. So you want to find people who will give you time, who will spend some time with you, and who will be articulate and thoughtful and give you those answers. Let you kind of dig around and get inside their brains. And so you often want to hand select people who will articulate well and who will talk and think a lot about your product or your service or your category. So it yields very good results, but this is why you would never ever use this approach to answer how many people do this, because these are a special group of people in special situations that you're using specifically to get deep inside their head. And there's a tendency to say, well, we went out and talked to 10 shoppers for an hour, and 6 out of those 10 shoppers told us this one thing, so that's what we should go with. That's the way the market's going, 6 out of 10. But you have to realize those 10 shoppers don't necessarily represent your entire market, and it's really useful to understand how they think, but it's not a good idea to take that and run with it as if it's a quantifiable amount of people. So let's talk quantitative. Let's say you do need to get numbers. You do need to know how many people like this, do this, are influenced by this, shop for this. And if that's the case, then you want to design a study to make sure that you get good numbers and that those numbers are reliable and valuable to you. So it starts out with understanding the population. Who is the population that you're trying to understand? Who are you trying to study? This is generally either your total target market or a specific, your main target market. So it may be any Walmart shopper, or it may just be a Walmart shopper who is female and has bought the category in a Walmart in the past 3 months and who has kids in the household. So maybe it's that target market. Maybe it's even more narrow. Maybe you only need to talk to people who bought your product. Maybe you want to talk to people who bought your product but switched, and you can narrow it further, but you really need to do some thinking up front about who are we trying to study, who do we want to understand. The who part is a critical part because ultimately when you get data, you need to know what population that data represents. So because it's virtually impossible to talk to every single person in this population that you want to study, because it would just be too time-consuming, too expensive. There's millions and millions of, let's say, moms who shop at Walmart in the United States. You would never get to talk to all of them. Then you're talking about, when you're designing a study, you're talking about taking a sampling of your population. So go out, take a portion of those people, and study those people, and then assume that those people are going to represent the broader population. So you need to think about, where did your sample come from? Did it come from a legitimate source? Was that sample biased in any way? If so, do we know how? For instance, if we only talk to our own friends and family, if we only talk to, hey, I sent a survey out to everybody in my company and I said, hey, ask your friends and your family members to take my survey, then you can say, well, this is biased because all the people came strictly from friends and family of people in my company. So these are important questions to understand. Where did the people come from? What was the sample source? And then how did we screen them? How did we define that they qualified for this study? Most all studies have some kind of screening to verify that, yes, this person is the type of person that you want to talk to. And so that screening piece is very important to think about up front so that you'll understand what your data really means when you get it back. So how big of a sample do you need for a quantitative study? This question comes up all the time. Clients are constantly asking, like, how many people do I need to have in my sample? Well, there's no hard and fast answer to this question, but more is always better. We can say statistically, the larger the sample is, the more confidence that you can have in the data, and the better decisions you'll be able to make on that data. On the other hand, everybody has budget limitations, everybody has timing limitations, and sometimes for really hard to reach samples, sometimes people just aren't very readily available. And so there's always that push-pull between, I want larger sample sizes for more confidence, but on the other hand, I can't spend my whole budget on this one study. I have to save money for all the other initiatives I have for the year. So there's generally a diminishing return once you get to a sample size of about 400. It starts to get more expensive to go above 400, and the amount of precision you start to get declines over time. You always get more, but you get less incrementally. So it's a diminishing return. So generally around 400 is where most people seek, but as a minimum, 100 is kind of a bare minimum. And a lot of people can only afford 100. And just know if you're using the minimum that that's still pretty minimal. There's a lot of uncertainty around that, but you can start there depending on your budgets. So you've decided to do your study. You've decided whether it's going to be qualitative or quantitative. You've decided who your population is, how you're going to go about them. Now you need to decide, how am I going to collect my data? So in-person is one way, and that's a very traditional way. Focus groups, very common and have always been very common in our industry. To get people in stores, taking interviewers into stores and intercepting them, pulling them out of the aisle and interviewing there is another very traditional method. Both of these methods are very expensive. In the case of in-store, you have to oftentimes get permission from the retailer to allow you to go in and intercept their shoppers. There can be lots of red tape around that. You may not even get permissions at all. It's slow. Oftentimes you can only do focus groups or in-person research in just a couple of cities. And you're like, I really need to know representative the whole country. So there's definitely downsides to going with an in-person approach. A self-completed approach, that could be via the internet on a laptop or a smartphone, is less expensive. You can get geographic representation all over the country by going that way. So if you think about mobile, and of course, you know, mobile is something I have a lot of depth of experience with being at Field Agent. The great thing about mobile is, unlike a laptop, the mobile can go a lot of places, either inside the home or into stores and locations. So one thing we do at Field Agent is a lot of research right there at the shelf. So rather than sending people a survey over the internet through email and saying, hey, did you shop in the last 24 hours? Tell us why you bought what you bought and what influenced you in store. How about we ask that right when they're standing there in the aisle? You are shopping right now for toothpaste. What influences you? What do you notice? What stands out? Which product would you pick and why? So the beauty of doing something with a location-specific mobile platform is we can get closer to that point where people are making a decision, and we can tell you right then and there what's motivating them, what's influencing them, because honestly, they're going to forget. 24 hours later, they're not going to remember, especially if it's a category that they don't give a whole lot of thought to. Now, maybe if they're buying an automobile, they can remember because they're spending, you know, many thousands of dollars. But for someone buying toothpaste or foods or consumer packaged goods, these are things that you really need to catch them right there. You can also find out, hey, if they didn't consider your product, they can snap a picture. And you can find out, lo and behold, your product, you thought it was, you know, right at eye level, but it's way down at the bottom of the shelf. And so they didn't even consider it because they didn't look down to the very bottom of the shelf. There's a picture of a toilet here, and you're probably wondering why that's there. But the beauty also of the mobile phone is it goes everywhere with people, everywhere they go, even into the bathroom. So we actually have experience with this. We did a product, this project has been publicized, so we can, you know, give details and so forth, but this was a project for P&G, and P&G wanted to understand how people used feminine hygiene products, how they actually used it, not just asking them, here, take this survey, tell us how you use the product, but when you actually use it, how is it used? They used to previously do this with their own employees. They would volunteer to take the surveys, and they would, when they were at home, they would fill out a survey and say, this is how I use the product. But they knew that they were missing out on all of the use cases with people who were outside of their homes. So anytime someone's at work, anytime someone's out shopping, anytime someone's out of their home, they had no visibility to how those people were using their product. And so they contracted with us, and we said, hey, people take their phones everywhere, and everywhere they go, even into the bathroom. So we had women, obviously, everything with Field Agent is voluntary, just like all market research. I mean, no one has to participate, but people volunteered to participate. They were paid an incentive, of course, and they snapped pictures of how they used the product everywhere they went, and P&G used that data, and they compared the data that we provided with historically the data that they had collected themselves, and they found out that because they were missing so many of the use cases, their data was really skewed. Their sample had been biased because they had only sampled the home use cases, and now when we sampled all the use cases, they had a more complete and accurate picture of how the products were used, and they redesigned the product and got new patents. So the platform works for in-store, but also works for in the home to collect information about how people are using products anywhere they happen to be. The other thing to think about is are there different types of data that you can bring to the table? So we all know questions, answers, charts, graphs, and those are all fabulous. But many of you have probably had this experience where we have lots of data, we know what's going on with our product as far as sales and so forth. We've analyzed that, and we've shown it to the Walmart buyer, and we can't seem to get this person to listen. But there is nothing like a video of the shopper telling you to get someone to believe the data, maybe that you have hard data to prove. And so one very effective tool that you can use is having video collection via a mobile platform and get the voice of the shopper or the customer. In this case, I have an example video that we collected, and this is an example of a video showing us and telling us from within the aisle how he is shopping that aisle, and it's actually making the need for that interviewer to go into the store, it's making that unnecessary, because we can collect this directly from the shopper all over the country without sending an in-person interviewer to go and pull somebody off the aisle and ask them a bunch of questions. So we're going to play this video. This is someone shopping for soup.
Walking to the aisle, I noticed there are many choices available, such as condensed soup and ready-to-go soup, also ready-to-heat soups. And there are many brands available. Campbell's are my favorite brand, also healthy choice I purchase very often. And there's also soup mixes. So there's a variety of choices available, and it really fit my needs. And what I noticed, something new is this healthy choice ready-to-go soup. They had the packaging is very attractive, and it really stands out on the shelf, so I may give it a try some other time.
Okay, I think
it's
that's
healthy
good.
Choice.
So there you can see where his eye kind of lingers, and how that green and that sea of red, the green really stood out. It was right at eye level. There really wasn't that many facings of the green, but as he panned through, his eyes just came right back to that. So these are other tools that you could use to collect information and to do it in a cost-effective way, and a way that can get you into the store without having to send an interviewer into the store. Another thing about in-person research, if you've ever done any in-home research where you've sent interviewers into homes, it's funny because the great thing about doing in-home research is you get right up close with your consumer inside their home. And so hypothetically, you're getting the most, unbiased, best view of what's going on with your consumer inside the home. But the truth is, before you arrive and knock on the front door, that consumer went and cleaned every inch of her home and organized her entire cabinet and all of her cabinets, and made sure that the kids were occupied and taken care of, and puts on her best ironed clothes, and then opens that door and presents an image to you that is really not an accurate image of what that home really looks like. On the other hand, if you say, hey, you're in your house right now, snap us a video, show us how you're dealing with getting dinner on the table. And you see really people just come as they are, and their messy counters and their dirty clothes and their kids, running around going crazy. And it's a much more accurate assessment of what is really going on inside that consumer's home before that sort of intrusive eyes of I'm coming to watch you and study you arrives there. So we've designed our study, we've picked a methodology, we've picked a sample, we've decided on a data collection method, and now it comes down to what questions are we going to ask? And it's very, very important to design your questions in such a way that you get the good information, quality information that you're looking for. Questionnaires can be subject to bias through the questions that you ask, and so it's something to really consider. And sometimes it's best to disguise your purpose of your questions so that you will avoid biasing your respondents. So for instance, if you are really interested in learning more about a specific brand, let's say you really want to understand more about Colgate toothpaste, it would be best if you didn't tell people up front, we're really, really, really interested in Colgate toothpaste, because guess what? They're going to want to please you, and they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I do like Colgate toothpaste. That's right. Yeah, it's a good product. So it's important to design your questionnaires in such a way that you don't sort of tip your hand and let respondents tell them what they think you want to hear. Tell you what they think you want to hear. When you design your questions, you want to avoid like judgmental type statements. You want to avoid statements that I put a bad example of a questionnaire here, but one of the questions is, how often do you eat junk food? Well, you just called it junk food, so that's pretty judgmental. So I'm going to say like, well, probably not that much, and in reality, maybe I eat it quite a bit more, but since you put it that way, I'm going to definitely tick down on what I say I eat. Also avoid mom and apple pie questions. Here's a great mom and apple pie question, and by that I mean no one would ever disagree with it. How important is price to you when you're shopping? I can't tell you how many times I've seen that question written down in questionnaires and changed it, because every shopper cares about price. Even the ones who don't care about price will tell you that they care about price. Now, they'll go and buy the higher priced item, but they will tell you that they care about price. So avoid questions that you already know the answer to. And just really consider having a research professional help you craft your questionnaires. So there's a lot of tools out there that will let you write your own questionnaires and execute them yourself, and that may be a viable tool, but there's also, if it's something that's really important, if it's a tricky issue or a very important business question, consider having some research professionals help you with the design and advise you on the best way to ask the questions. So those are all the slides that I have, and are there any questions that I can answer?
So on the video that you get from these consumers, is it pretty realistic? Their lives are more normal?
Yes. We've had some people, some people do them in their pajamas, hey, you're making dinner, and they're there in their pajamas, We've had people, the guy is not wearing a shirt, just walking around with his shorts on, and, people in their bathrobes and things like this. So we definitely see, and I think it's because even though it is on video, they don't see you on the other side. And I think that there's a filter there. We all know now, we've seen enough social media to know that people will kind of put anything out there on social media. And they'll tell you things on social media they would never tell you in real life. And so we didn't invent that behavior, but we take advantage of it when we're collecting information.